Welcome back to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the podcast Michigan great and current BTN analyst who's calling the game for Rutgers-Michigan this Saturday in the Big House, Jake Butt. Jake, thanks so much for being back here.
Oh yeah, of course, Aaron. I'm so excited for this game this weekend too. It's Rutgers for a few years now has played Michigan tough. I mean, I called the game last year and Rutgers gave Michigan everything they had. I mean, you think there was like a goal line stand where Michigan had been able to bully every team they played, and there was a penalty, so Rutgers had to stand them up for 7 straight plays, and then you go back 2 years ago and final score is 20-13. And frankly, I look at the way this team's playing right now. This might be the best team that Ciano's had in a few years, at least what you've seen early in the season. So I'm excited, man. This is the first big test for Rutgers, the first big test for Michigan. So you don't know until you put it on tape, and I'm excited to see it.
So Jim Harbaugh well. He's been pretty. I'm really impressed. Like I wrote about today, like he's showing a lot of respect. I feels like he's really challenging his team to come out and bring it right from the start. How much do you think that plays into this in terms of his return? How much of an emotional lift that might be in terms of missing the first 3 games, but also how much they're putting an emphasis on not letting Rutgers hang around the way they have the last 3 meetings?
Well, I don't think that that second part, I don't think is much of a conversation. I think I just talked to the Rutgers staff. I'm going to talk to the Michigan staff. I can promise you all they're focused on is one play at a time. Like they're not thinking about, man, let's open this thing up. They're going to call the best play for the situation, both sides, and just focus on that specific moment. But where I will say that this does make a difference for Michigan is, you think about it last week, Sharon Moore was the acting head coach. Well, Sharon Moore is the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach. So typically when the defense is on the field, Sharon Moore can then meet with the offensive staff and meet with his offensive line and go over looks and plays and make adjustments. Well, he wasn't able to do that last week because he has to coach the defense. He has to coach the team when the defense and the special teams is out there. So when Jim comes back, that frees up the responsibilities for everybody else to do their job. So that's where I think you'll see a big rise in the Michigan sideline is guys getting back to doing what they were signed on the staff to do.
Rutgers obviously off to a 3-0 start. They've been pretty dominant so far, plus 65 scoring margin. What's impressed you most about this team so far this season?
Frankly, they are tough, man. I asked Ciano, I was like, listen, every coach says they want a tough team, but your team's tough. You just turn on the tape, the defense, when they hit you, they're not falling on their back. They're trying to put the ball carrier on their back. Manungai consistently makes the first guy miss. Like, that's what I like when I watch about Manungai is like, not every play is a clean block. Like, it's not like he's just running, tiptoeing through the tulips, right? He's having to make guys miss and run through arm tackles, but there is some well-blocked plays in there too. The O-line is playing as one unit. Johnny Langan is mixing it up there at tight end. Receivers are blocking well. And then Wimsatt, I feel he looks more comfortable this year. And I think a big piece of that was lost last year is, remember that Boston College game when he took a run like 70 yards to the house, and you're like, man, this guy is legit. He can run the ball. But then he was playing on a sprained ankle all last year. Well, he's healthy again this year. Wimsatt, to me, is a guy that will continue to get better as a passer. I don't think he's realized his full potential yet. But what helps him is a run game with Manungai, a run game that he can get involved with, and then he can simplify the passing scheme off of play action. So I'm impressed by the toughness of the team. I'm impressed by the way Ciarrocca is playing to the strengths of the offense and the way the offense has responded. This team is just playing so hard. And at the end of the day, man, that you have to respect it. Like, you have to respect 22 guys, 11 on offense, 11 on defense, mix in 11 on special teams, all leaving it all on the field for 4 quarters every week.
Yeah, great points there. And I think the most encouraging part for me is just how well coached this team looks. The offensive staff obviously revamped, and it's not just, Ciarrocca, but you have Dave Brock, really experienced wide receiver coach, Pat Flaherty, offensive line, 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. Has that in terms of that professionalism that this team has and their ability to take advantage of mistakes of their opponents, how much do you think that's key for them going into the big house? Rough, obviously really intimidating environment, but also having some confidence being competitive there 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, I mean that is everything, and it's particularly in a game like this. If you want to have a chance at this, turnovers are a big thing, and offensively they've been solid. Wimsatt has been solid; he's taken care of the football, and then defensively they've taken the ball away, right? So that's got to be your formula in this game. JJ's coming off JJ McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback's coming off a historically undisciplined game by his standards. Really, he had 3 turnovers, I believe, and there was a couple more potentially that he got lucky with. So if you're Rutgers, you're saying, hey man, we just need to take advantage of it if the opportunities come. And then on the offensive side of the ball is just do your job, right? Don't worry about making some big sweeping explosive play that's going to win you the game in the first quarter. Just do your job, and hopefully you look up third quarter, fourth quarter, and you're right there in a dogfight. That all comes back to coaching, though, right? It is on coaching to simplify the scheme and to get the players to believe in that, even though this is not a game when everything's going to go well. Like this Michigan front seven, it's going to be hard to run against them, just flat out. This is a deep, talented, explosive, big, strong front seven. The secondary is as good as Rutgers has seen all year. There's going to be moments of adversity here for both teams. That's when coaching comes into play.
Well, that's a perfect point, because that's what I think as Rutgers fans we're waiting to see is once this team gets punched in the mouth for the first time, once Wimsatt faces some adversity for the first time, they've been, in the lead the entire season, and how does Ciarrocca, what's his plan for that, right? He's so prepared in how he game plans and has strategized. I'm really curious in your thoughts on what, Ciarrocca can do to kind of adjust and keep Wimsatt's head in it in a situation that I think is the biggest test of his career.
I think you think of a game like this, and I don't think Rutgers needs to go in there. It's about expectations, right? So, Rutgers, as you said, has been in the lead the majority of the season, right? All of the season. Have they ever trailed?
No,
they've never even trailed, right? So they've had the lead the whole year. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case here in Ann Arbor. But if this game's close into the second quarter and you're making plays and you're getting stops and you're able to run the ball, maybe not as good as you have these past few weeks, but good enough. You look up in the third quarter, you don't have to be winning for the pressure to then be on Michigan, right? Then the pressure, the crowd is like, instead of cheering, they're saying, what's going on here, guys? We're supposed to win this game, right? The pressure then shifts to Michigan's sideline. One thing I would just, and I wasn't able to get any intel on this, but one thought I have is offensively, at some point, Wimsatt has to showcase an ability to throw the ball down the field. I've compared his arm to like a wild stallion, dude. He has all the arm talent in the world. That doesn't necessarily mean he's Tom Brady back there, right? Like decision-making, consistent accuracy, consistency, all that adds up. But that dude can sling it. So understanding how good the run game's been, I wonder if in understanding too, Michigan's front seven has been their strength. They've been injured in the secondary. Do you get into some play action and just take a couple shots? Just let Langen you have one or two reads, or excuse me, Wimsatt, you have one or two reads, big time play action, and just let his arm loose. Maybe you get 7 points off one of those. Just even the willingness to do that can be enough to give a defense something to think about. So, that's got to be your approach in a game like this. I don't think you're just going to line up and play traditional football and beat Michigan on the road.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think, every time this year so far, like we've seen in the third quarter, Rutgers has really struggled because they've gotten so conservative and just try to run it up the gut. 9 drives, 8 punts, 1 touchdown. It seems like this is a game they have to take some shots, have to take some chances. And I feel like early on they need to. And even if they don't necessarily connect on that deep ball, at least they're making Michigan think about it. And we've seen that once, they throw downfield, it does open up the run game. I'm just curious how much that necessarily is going to hit in terms of being able to do that, and how much Rutgers is going to rotate the running backs to be able to give Michigan different looks.
Yeah, well, another element of this is like converting third downs because that keeps Michigan defense on the field and that gives your offense more opportunities. But I mean, I see 3rd and 5, I see 3rd and 8, I see 3rd and 11, and it's still a run play for Rutgers, right? It is. They are still doing court read options. They're doing sweeps, and I think you're doing that. I'm sure that can be frustrating to watch at times as you're like, man, why aren't we at least trying? But I think what you're doing is you have a still young quarterback in Wimsatt. He's still learning the position. He's still learning and growing. And you're just trying to put him in the best position possible. You remember that game last year at SHI Stadium. That was a close game coming out of half. And then all of a sudden, Wimsatt threw 2 pick sixes, just young quarterback mistakes, right? Just staring down the receiver, not seeing the dropping zone defenders, linebackers, and D linemen. And then all of a sudden, the game's you're out of the game, right? So just being able to avoid those mistakes can often be as beneficial as making a big time play. So there's a little dance you have to play as a coach and a play caller to ensure you're giving yourself the best chance to win. That doesn't always mean attack. Sometimes there's a strategy aspect to it.
Good point. In terms of the defense, Rutgers has been extremely disruptive. They've got a lot of contributions from multiple guys. 5 different guys having interceptions, 8 different guys have sacks. How important is it for them to get that type of contributions from everyone in terms of staying fresh and being able to swarm the ball and keep their energy up in a game like this?
Takes everybody in a game like this. It takes everybody, and it's going to take a couple guys, your key players, to make plays. Just seems like one of the emotional leaders is Mohamed Toure, guy that's been through a bunch of injuries. I just know what that means to everyone in the locker room has seen that guy fight, and they're all like, man, maybe one day he'll get healthy. And then you look at the way he's flying around and playing ball. That there's an emotional aspect that trickles down throughout the defense. So you need guys like him and everybody else to step up. But this is the biggest test for Michigan too. I mean, I won't say the run game has looked bad. I think there's been some panic by Ann Arbor fans or national media. The run game hasn't looked bad. It just hasn't looked what you had expected to see at this point in the season. So this is Michigan's biggest test. This is a physical front 7 for Rutgers. Linebackers fly around. The safeties get involved as well. So it's going to be a test for both sides of the football. But I think what that leads you to is 1st and 2nd down are going to be critical for both teams. If you're Rutgers, you don't want to live in 3rd and short. You don't want to avoid 3rd down altogether. If Michigan's converting on 1st and 2nd down, they're just going to roll, and that they wear on teams over 4 quarters. On the flip side, Michigan, it's not been traditionally their strength to convert a bunch of 3rd and longs, though I do think their passing game has taken a step. But that's just one thing to watch here is who's winning 1st and 2nd down, particularly early in the game.
Yeah, that's it. For Rutgers, that's been the key is, right, they've been in a lot of 3rd and short situations, and really for all the Big Ten play, are they able to keep that going and be able to keep that conversion rate, converting 48% compared to 28% last year? In terms of just being able to stay in the game defensively, I'm worried about the offense being able to sustain drives and then the defense typically getting worn down the way they have. But the way they were able to take Michigan's offense out of the game 2 years ago, those 4 3-and-outs to start the second half, do you expect Michigan to try to open it up early, or do you think that they're going to try to commit to that run early on and establish things that way?
I think what coming out of last week, there may be a temptation for fans to say, man, this is a redemption game for JJ. Like he's got to go prove that that's not him. And I'd be very careful. And it doesn't seem like that's his mentality or Coach Harbaugh's mentality. You don't need to redeem anything. You just need to go do what you do. So what I would expect Michigan to come out here is not to do anything tricky or special or try to be something that they're not. I think that they're going to commit to the run first. We're in Big Ten play. I expect them to lean on Blake, who's gotten healthier and healthier each week. I haven't seen Donovan fully play a 60-minute football game yet. And Michigan needs him this week now more than ever to get there. So I think Michigan leans on that run game early. And then that's going to be the challenge to Rutgers. Michigan, then if Rutgers can stop the run game, it will be on Michigan to adjust. But I expect Michigan to lean on the run game heavily.
And is there any particular matchup, whether it's personnel or just in terms of a key that you think Rutgers needs in terms to win to be able to be in this game?
Yeah, I do think as good. Rutgers' offensive line has really been impressive to start the season, and I'll throw in the tight ends as well. I think this offense is not built to throw the ball 30 times a game and win. That means that this offensive line and the tight ends are going to have to play their best game against what could be. There's certainly a case to be made that this is the best front seven, D line, and linebackers in all of college football. So that's the matchup. If Rutgers is not able to run the ball this weekend, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be very tough for them to win. But they do some creative things, man. They're not just going toe to toe and running power off tackle, right? Like when you have a quarterback that can run, that is a whole nother element that gives defensive coordinators nightmares. And they do some awesome stuff pre-snap with motions and these little shifts. Like the running backs on the left, they'll shift them to the right and then quickly snap the ball. And it's like, well, why do you do that? Well, when the quarterbacks has the capability to be in a read option, if the running back's to your side as an edge player, you're thinking, okay, read option. They're going to read me. When you shift it right before the snap and then snap it right away, you're now stressing those edge players to flip in their head in a split second. Oh, I'm the read option guy, right? So they do some things to scheme to their advantage pre-snap. And every good offense, you have a pre-snap schematic advantage because you know where you're going. So again, I've been impressed with Ciarrocca, taking everything he can to give them the best chance possible. But if Rutgers cannot run the football, this game will not go in their favor.
Totally agree. So last question for you, just in terms of if that does happen, let's say Rutgers gets blown out, at the end of the day, this doesn't take anything off the table for what Rutgers wants to accomplish this season. What is your overall thoughts on this team and what they can ultimately achieve in their ceiling for this year?
So I'm looking at the schedule here, and look, the Big Ten East is tough, man. I mean, Penn State, Ohio State. Penn State's as good as they've been. Ohio State, I wasn't buying into some of the anti-hype to start the year. They're still Ohio State. This Michigan team's loaded. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat any of those three teams. That's just a flat out truth. Maryland to me is this is maybe the best Maryland team Loxley's had in a while. That team's loaded. That's going to be a tough one. I look at some of the crossover games here. You got Wisconsin and Iowa. I'm still jury's out a little bit on Wisconsin, right? Like jury's out. I see some good. I see some bad. I don't know if they know who they want to be yet. But look, at the same time, you got Wagner, Indiana, like even Maryland. There's some winnable games in here, right? So the challenge is be competitive as much as possible to keep that locker room up. Get to 4 when you can. Sneak away to get to 5, and then if you can get to 6, that is the number one goal here. I mean, Schiano calls it a developmental program, right? Coaching is not about, there's no two standards program to program. Like your goal here in Rutgers is to get to 6 wins, continue to replenish your roster. That bowl game's critical because it's an extra spring of practice. It's an extra spring of building culture. So it all comes down to that. But again, I try not to get too caught up in speculation and records when it comes to Rutgers because I respect Schiano as a coach. I respect Rutgers as a program. Those dudes play freaking balls to the wall every single week, man. They play so hard. And again, like that there is something to be said about that. It'd be easy for teams, and teams have thrown in the towel at times, right? The Big Ten East is loaded. You'll never see that with Schiano, and you'll never see that with Rutgers. I mean, I listened to them talk all week, and they're like, they have the utmost respect for Michigan, talking about this team has no weaknesses. This team is loaded. This is going to be a great challenge. I know one thing. They're going to say all that, and then they're going to take the field fierce and fearless. there's respect, but there is zero fear out there coming from Rutgers, and that's what I'm excited to see them. That's why I'm excited to see them take the field this weekend.
Jake Butt, really appreciate your time. Michigan, great, and on the call, noon on Saturday in the Big House, Rutgers, Michigan. Excited for that. I know Michigan fans are as well, and always appreciate your insight and time. Thanks so much, and have a great call on Saturday.
Thanks.